Rebecca Owen is on a mission to inspire more people to become vegan, take the Liberation Pledge, and then get active for the animals. As an organizer with the Cube of Truth and the Animal Rights March in Bristol in England, Rebecca believes that we're on our way to manifesting the mass support necessary to build that vegan world, and that now is the most important time for each of us to get involved in a way that feels comfortable to us each as individuals creatively. So Rebecca has a YouTube channel, the Vegan Pixie Warrior, which offers ideas and inspiration for overcoming anxiety, fear, time constraints, and other challenges that keep people from finding their full activist potential. And thank you so much for taking the time today, Rebecca.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm honoured to be a part of this amazing project that you've got.
And back at you for sure. So I always love to hear about people's, how did you get onto the vegan path story? I know a lot of people still think that veganism is a cult, but every single individual I speak with has found it on their own somehow.
Yeah, no, my husband watched a film with some work colleagues that were recommended to him called Food Choices. And that was in February 2017. And he said, right, we're flipping meat-free Mondays on the head. So we're only going to have meat one day a week, and then we're going to have plant-based for the rest of the week and have cut out dairy. So I was a bit dubious and wasn't sure and questioning it. And we really enjoyed it, and we did really well. And then in August 2017, I was at home. My husband was with his parents for the day. And I watched What the Health, Cowspiracy, and Vegucated in one day. And it was Vegucated that got me. There was a scene in there where you saw a calf being taken from their mother, and that was it. Then my husband came home from his parents. I said, I'm done. I was in tears over the animals. I said, I'm going vegan. And he said, okay, I'll do it with you. So it was just that was it.
That's a big change, because you were raised, as I was, with a kind of meat and potatoes diet, hey?
That's right. Yeah, I was definitely raised as meat. I remember wanting to be vegetarian when I was about 12 or 13. And my parents said because I had a heart defect that I needed to have meat in my diet, which we now know is not the truth. I mean, I'm 40, so that was back in like the late 80s that my parents said that to me. And we know now that that's not true. And in fact, proof to that is I had a heart checkup the January before I went vegan, and it wasn't good. And I got to have surgery done because I've got a lifelong condition that I've been born with. And a year after I went vegan, my next heart checkup was, we don't know what's happened, but your heart's doing really well and it's performing as normal. So yeah, definitely gazumped my parents on them saying I needed to eat animal products to stay
That is
healthy.
amazing. I love those stories, right? And so did you have support from your doctors then, and the health system?
They just asked me what I'd done, and I just said I've switched to vegan lifestyle and I feel better. And I used to have yearly checkups, but now I don't have to have them for 2 years. So I should have one this month, and I'm not going to have it until next year. So I'm happy with that. I've still got to have the surgery done because it's something that's necessary. But with regards to the checkups, they said whatever you're doing, just carry on doing it. So.
Wow, that's so great, isn't it? Um, okay, so and then did but your family, it sounds like now you've taken the Liberation Pledge, and I'd like if you wouldn't mind explaining what that is. And in one of your videos, you talk about the history of how that's connected to the Chinese, and so I'd like to talk if you could tell about that, and then how that's maybe shifted things with your family a bit.
Yeah, the Liberation Pledge was something I'd heard about for a while, and I wasn't sure how it would work. And I'm a big advocate for creating demand and creating vegan products and going to non-vegan restaurants as well as supporting the 100% vegan ones. So I thought, well, you're going to cut yourself off from your family and friends, and how are you going to get people to go vegan and talk about what happens to the animals and talk about the ethics if you're not eating with them? So that's what I thought it was. But a friend of mine in London at the Animal Rights March, he was wearing a fork bracelet, and he told me about why he'd taken it. And the way he put it across to me is, I'm out on the streets and I'm advocating for people to stop animal abuse and getting perfect strangers to go vegan. And then I'm going home with friends and family, and I'm sitting down around the table with them while they're eating animal products. I'm normalizing it. It's like it's not okay for the strangers to do it, but it's okay for my friends and family to do it. And that was really resonated with me. And also the fact that I was watching footage at Cuba Truths, or I was going to a vigil and seeing these pigs going into the slaughterhouse. And when I was watching all this footage and then being with friends and family, whether they were eating a piece of chicken, or a chicken leg or an octopus or whatever they were eating, I would see what happened to that animal when they were dying. And it just made me really upset, and it made me not enjoy my family events anymore and friends events. And I would cancel going out last minute and make excuses, or I'd be come home really angry. So after talking to Mark, it kind of, like I said, it resonated with me, and it made me decide to take the pledge. And it's been easy and it's been hard. There's been amazing times where my brother has hidden all the animal products in his fridge when I've gone to visit him because he's worried it's going to upset me. And him and his kids and his girlfriend have eaten vegan the whole weekend. And then there's been other times where people will eat vegan with me, but they're not as happy about it. And you can tell that they're not happy about it. But for the most part, I would say 80% of my experiences with the pledge have been positive. And the big thing for me, and I think for all vegans, you try and bring up what happens to the animals while you're sat with friends and family, and they put this wall up, and they go, oh, stop talking about veganism, stop pushing it down my throat, and I don't care, I don't want to know. Whereas with the pledge, people are asking me questions, and I think because they realize it means so much to me. They're so, why have you taken this? What is it? What happens here? What happens there? And it just opens up the conversation a lot more. So, and it's not for everyone, and not everyone can fit it into their lives. But for me, it is. So, sorry, I digressed as well. The part of the pledge is that you refuse to sit with people that are eating animal products in front of you, and you ask them to eat vegan with you. That's what it is. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. And I sort of threw something out there as well about Chinese, and because of all the anti-Chinese sentiment in the world, I don't want to leave that dangling. So was it you who talked about the connection? Yeah. Can
Yeah,
you?
I did in my first video. So the connection is for the Chinese had a ritual where they used to bind their daughter's feet. And it came from a king who saw a dancer that had come in, she'd bound her feet, and he liked it so much because she had dainty little feet that I don't know if it became law, but it became something that was considered a good practice to do, to bind your daughter's feet. And their feet were just literally crushed right up. The toes were curled under, changed the whole bone structure. And a few of them had enough of this. So what they decided to do was refuse to bind their daughter's feet, but also more importantly, refuse to let their sons marry women that had bound feet. And eventually it just became obsolete, and they didn't do it anymore. And it took about 100 years to do. Um, Hopefully the Liberation Pledge won't be 100 years before we get a vegan world. But and I haven't managed to turn anyone vegan with it yet, but it's definitely making people think more. And I do know of other people on the support group that have turned people vegan from taking the pledge. So I think it's quite powerful.
Right. And ultimately, I mean, we do it for the animals, but also we're helping with their health. If they have any health issues, as you know, you're a testimony to that, right? That it's actually healthier if you sit with me and eat this food. Even just one meal is going to make a difference in your body, right? So
Yeah.
we're doing everybody a favor. And so yeah, it's frustrating when those walls go up for sure. I've had a similar experience. My family are gone now, but I, definitely insisted on vegan foods in their last years of when my folks were with me. My parents are from England, so I have tons of cousins and stuff all over the islands that I don't know. But I'm kind of alone here now. But at Christmas this year, I think something about COVID and just the idea that now we know that not only is it bad for our health, it's horrible for the environment, it's terrible for the animals, and it's caused a pandemic. This habit that's being normalized, like foot binding was normalized. This thing that happens is normalized, and now I can't. It's really just even hard to know what to say to people anymore when they're talking about how they're tired of isolation and shut down. And it's like, well, are you vegan? You know?
Yeah, it's tough times at the moment for everybody. Definitely, it's been hard, and hard not to be able to advocate for the animals. That's the toughest thing that I find. But you're right, like, getting them to make that connection. I mean, 3 out of 4 diseases are zoonotic diseases. So the common cold comes from animal agriculture. You know, chicken pox literally comes from chickens, and all of these different diseases that we've got as humans that we have to immunize ourselves against, that we wouldn't have to if we didn't have animal agriculture.
Right, and we don't need to do it. So the Liberation Pledge, then, it sounds like it's really about normalizing vegan, total veganism, and saying what you're doing isn't normal to me, and I can't participate even by being with you.
Exactly. I mean, the other way to put it is, if someone had slaves, would you go around to their house to have dinner if they had slaves serving you? Or if someone was serving dog and eating dog in front of you, would you eat dog? What's the difference between the dog and the cow? We often say that as vegan activists, we say there's no difference between the pig and the dog, or the dog and the cow. But if someone was serving dog, you can guarantee that those meat eaters, unless they're obviously in China, would kick up a fuss and go, I'm not coming round to your house if you're going to serve dog. So, or I'm not going to sit and eat with you if you're going to eat that. So it's the same thing to me.
And I think that's the hardest, it's actually the hardest part of being vegan is this relationship that we've had with these people that we love and we have memories and we've built a relationship with, and then suddenly, I don't know, it's like somebody pulled the rug out, and that we have no solid ground to stand on anymore. It's very challenging, especially in these times. Yeah.
Definitely. That's why I'm so lucky my husband's vegan. I don't, I think I would struggle. I think I really would, because no one in my family is vegan. So, and I've got loads of vegan friends now because I've become active for the animal rights, in the animal rights movement. But without my husband, I don't think I would be on this journey as passionately and as supported as I am now.
That's really wonderful. And especially that he introduced the idea. It's usually the other way around, I think. So that's really awesome. And so it must be really frustrating. I was an activist for peace and environment for like 20 years. And I think I kind of burned out on the street activism when finally I mean, I've been vegan for 20 years, but for some reason I think once I saw Earthlings, then I wanted to become an activist. That really sort of puts the fire in the belly, doesn't it? But I think by the time I got that fire in the belly, I just kind of burned out on the street activism personally. So, but I understand, I did go to One Cube of Truth, and I get that that's a very powerful thing to do. So it must be very frustrating for you now. Are you starting to be able to do street activism again?
We're still in lockdown at the moment in the UK, and we've got a new bill coming in, which I'm worried about how that's going to
Mm.
affect street activism. I mean, I'm not part of AV anymore. I've joined a different street activism group, but yeah, I am missing it, and street activism is not for anyone, and that's the whole point of my channel. Is I want to show all the different forms of activism. There's so many ways you can be active, and I suffer with anxiety quite badly, and when I went to my first event, I was so stressed out about it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to get back out on the streets. We're not on the streets at the moment, and I'm desperate to get back out there because it's where I feel that my strengths are with talking to people, members of the public.
And what kind of reactions do you get from people?
You get mixed reactions. You get some people walking past going, "I'm going to have a hot dog." I'm like, "Yeah, go ahead, have a tofu hot dog. You can have a vegan one." Like, or we've had kids, young teenagers eating KFC in front of us when we're holding the screens and behind the mask. But genuinely, the people that stop, and I always say inquisitive people tend to be open-minded. So the people that do stop and watch and that you do talk to, most of the time they'll to walk away and go, thank you so much for telling me this. I had no idea. Or thank you for so much for having this demonstration. And people need to be more aware of this. And, so it's usually a positive reaction. You will get the odd one that isn't, but I can probably count on one hand in the last 2.5 years how many negative reactions I've had, and it's not many.
So it doesn't trigger your anxiety as much as you thought it might?
I think with my anxiety, the thing is, I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for the animals. And when I'm getting the kit bag together and getting all the cards and signs together, and I'm having that feeling in my belly like I'm going to go out the house and I've got to get on the bus and I've got to talk to people, I just put my mind in what the animals are going through. And it's so much more worse than I could be when I'm out on the streets talking to a stranger. What's the worst thing that's going to happen to me? They're going to shout in my face and walk away, and I'm probably never going to see them again. Whereas these animals are going through so much pain and torture. And as well for me, because I paid for that for 40 years of my life, I feel like I'm making up for that time now by being out there and talking for them.
Right on. Yeah. And you have posted some videos as well where you've gone to slaughterhouses and with the trucks. And do they do that there where they give them water as they're going in, or is it?
We don't do the water in the UK. It's very different, I think, to how it is in Canada, because that's what I always expected. When I went to my first vigil, I remember taking a few bottles of water for the pigs, but we can't do that over here because we're really lucky. I say it lucky, it sounds weird, but with the group of people that we have doing Animal Save in Bristol, the woman who kind of heads it up and is the face of it, she's like my vegan mummy. Like, I'm her vegan daughter because she doesn't have any vegan kids, and she's my vegan mummy. But she's a very peaceful, loving person, and she's built up a relationship with the health and safety officer in the slaughterhouse. So this lady will often come out of the slaughterhouse, talk to us, make sure that we're okay, talk to my friend Josephine, and go back in. And we have an arrangement that the trucks stop, the security guard leaves the barrier down so the truck can't go in. We always ask the drivers if they will stop. And if they won't, then we step back and we don't say goodbye to the pigs. But if they say yes, which I think there's like 2 truck drivers that won't let us do that, but the others will. And we get a good two minutes with the pigs to say goodbye. So we are really lucky. They're having some vigils next week, but I'm back at work, so I won't be able to go.
And so when the truck drivers pause then and allow you to, you're bearing witness, really is the point of that. So they allow you to film what's going on.
Yeah, we're allowed to film in the trucks. We're allowed to stroke the pigs. We're not allowed to climb on the trucks, obviously for health and safety reasons. But yeah, they have no problem with us filming at all. I wasn't what I was expecting. All the videos I've seen of vigils before I went to one were shouting at the truck drivers shouting at the activists, and it was just all, a lot of tension. So I was really nervous about it. But when Josephine explained to me how it works at Bristol, I was pleasantly surprised and shocked. And inside, I'm raging at these truck drivers. Inside, I'm screaming and shouting and swearing. But then in my mind, that doesn't do the pigs any use either, because they're stressed. They're in a stressful situation and they know what's coming. They can smell and sense that something's wrong. And if you're shouting and bawling, then that's just going to cause them more, anxiety. And that's not something I don't want to put on them. They're already going through enough without us, making it worse. And to me, if you're being peaceful and you're sharing these videos, which I do on my Facebook page, when I do a Facebook Live when I'm at a vigil, other people are seeing that. And if they see you acting with love and kindness, then they're more likely to act with love and kindness, I think. And my friend Josephine says, love brings love. And I 100% believe her.
She's a good vegan mom.
She's amazing.
That's awesome. And so in the UK, you mentioned that there are some laws maybe that are going to prevent you from doing outreach. So is this something new? Because we're just now facing federal, like a national, potentially ag-gag legislation. So currently it's only in 2 different provinces, in Alberta and Ontario, but now there's a bill that's come up that's being voted on. And in fact, a lot of NDP, which is supposedly the Progressive Party, a lot of them voted for it because it's framed as farm protection or whatever. Though we know there's already laws on the books that protect farm. This is really an ag gag legislation. Also in Canada, we don't have any transport laws. So these pigs apparently arrive at the slaughterhouse in the summer because they don't sweat. And in the summer, it's really hot and they're very distressed. So I'm wondering in the UK, you mentioned this law and transport laws. Do you know about those?
Well, it's not a transport law that's happening at the moment. I don't know about what our transport laws are like. I mean, there was an incident last summer where a pig was fitting in the truck. I wasn't at that vigil, I was at work, but my friend took footage of it, and it was a lot like we see from you guys in Canada. I mean, we don't have, the warmest of summers, but last summer was particularly warm, and there was suffering there. But the worrying bill that's coming in at the moment that is trying to be passed by the Tory government is a form of ag law, basically refusing our right to protest, which is going to be massive. Oh, sorry. No, pig. Sorry, my cat. Pig will
Oh,
sleep.
hello, kitty.
Go on, darling. So it's saying that if the protest causes discomfort and distress, and for example, if there's an office building where the protest is being held and the noise from the protest disturbs the workers in the
Oh
office
my
building, the
gosh.
police can shut it down.
Wow.
So that makes me worry about the Animal Rights March this year. And it also makes me worry about doing street activism events with the screens, because what is on the screens is quite upsetting, and it's going to upset and disturb people. And it will only take a few members of public, some anti-vegans, to call up the police a few times and make a few complaints. The police to come over to us and shut it down. I've been really lucky. I don't know how that's gonna be moving forward, but I've been incredibly lucky with my relationship with the police in Bristol. They've been supportive of all our Cube events. They come up and ask us if we're okay. They give us a reference number, so if we have any trouble, we can phone them up, give them a reference number, and they'll send people out to support us and help us if we're getting abuse or attacks from people. For the Animal Rights March in Bristol, they were brilliant in the lead up. They gave me loads of advice, loads of support. They were fantastic on the day. The chief of police spoke to my husband at the end of it. He wanted to speak to me, but I was busy with people after the speeches. And he said it was a fantastic march. He can't wait to do it again next year. And this was in 2019. So it just shows that if you give you get, and like Josephine said, if you give love you get love. And I'm not saying that all police are like this. Obviously there are bad apples out there, and I get that. I'm very privileged as a white woman, and I know that I have a very good relationship with the police, and maybe it would be different if I was of a different race or ethnicity, and I understand that and I get that. So I am very lucky in that respect. But with this new law, I am worried that it's going to affect things, especially with yesterday. I don't know if you've seen on the news, but because of this new bill that's being passed, there are protests happening all over the UK at the moment. And they're calling it Kill the Bill. And in the UK, we call the police the Bill as well. So it's
Oh.
like a nickname. Yeah. So some people have taken the Kill the Bill as in, rather than kill the bill against protesting, to kill the police. We had a protest in Bristol yesterday. Thousands of people turned up. It was really peaceful. I wasn't there because of my heart condition. I'm self-isolating, but it was a really peaceful protest. And then in the late afternoon, early evening, it turned bad. And there was some bad apples, ruined it for everybody. The police were out with their riot gear. They hadn't been wearing their riot gear all day. And they set a police van on alight. They spray painted police vans. They spray painted buildings. They smashed up places in the city centre. And it was an absolute mess. So, yeah, in a way, it's worrying that we're kind of playing into the government's hands by that happening in this wonderful city that I'm not from, but I live in and I love. And there's so many good, like the Black Lives Matter protest last year where they took down the Colston statue was fantastic. But last night I'm disappointed, and it's worrying me. So I'm keen to talk to my contact within the police to find out where we stand moving forward. And if that's going to affect vigils as well, is that going to affect our chalking event? Will our messages offend people that we write out on the pavement in chalk? I think it's just going to affect so much. And for the UK, I just didn't expect that sort of, I don't know, silencing, I guess.
Well, yeah, it seems to be a global sort of censorship, and so, the idea of offending people, I mean, that's a very subjective thing. How do you even I could say anything offends me. I mean, that's
Can
gonna
you
be
shut down our local supermarket, Tesco's? Can you shut down Tesco's because their meat aisle offends me?
right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, and it's great to have a good relationship with police, but ultimately they're there to enforce laws, and if that's a law, that's their job, right? And when you
yeah,
mention about complaints from non-vegans, I it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, we know that the big meat and dairy industry is behind implementing these laws and lobbying for these laws. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're the ones to complain. And also, one final thought I had was about agent provocateur. We know there was a gentleman who's now elected as a Green member of our provincial government, Paul Manley, and several years ago, maybe a decade ago, he was at a protest somewhere in the Eastern Canada, and I forget what it was about. um I think it was about NAFTA or something or other. And anyways, he filmed. He happened to be filming, and at one point, the member who of the organization who had organized the protest, the Council of Canadians, he noticed that this guy was trying to rustle up the crowd, get everybody angry, and he called him out as a provocateur. And so anyways, Paul had this footage, and it turned out that they didn't just let it go. They held on to that, and they followed up with it, and that indeed is what it was. And so we know that this sort of things happen. So I'm so sorry to hear
yeah.
what's happened
I
in
mean,
Bristol.
there is some video evidence as well that I just saw before I came on this call with you, that has been sent to somebody else on Facebook of what looks like a provocateur talking to the police, and they're having a little talk, and then he goes off to the front, and it all kicks off.
Right?
So yeah, but those people were saying, oh, the police might be responsible, but then you think about that and the provocateur and that it could be, but there were people that had bought fireworks with them and were letting off fireworks in the crowd. But whether that was, premeditated or, acts, I don't know. But either way, last night is really upsetting, and I think it's going to be a real threat to the freedom of this country. I was watching on Saturday night. I watched a film called Quit Camp on Netflix, and it was about a like, so in the States they have, like, I don't know if you have it in Canada, but I lived in Miami for a while, and you have like summer camp, right?
Mhm.
So it was a summer camp for people that were disabled, and they went from spina bifida to cerebral palsy to all sorts of different disabilities. And it was filmed in the 70s, and it was a documentary about how they actually protested for their civil rights in the mid 70s to have the right to just enter a building, because there was no, there was just steps, and there was no ramp for them to enter, and to have normal schools and everything that you should have as a human being. And it was something that never occurred to me. I thought about women's rights and what this bill is going to affect. So women's rights, black rights, gay rights, trans rights, animal rights. It's going to affect all of those. I never even thought about disabled people and their rights. It wasn't in my head. So that really resonated with me as well. And we've got to stop this. And I don't know what we can do apart from lobbying the government. But I think last night's events are going to go against us, and it's worrying. It's worrying me.
Yeah, people need to stay peaceful. We never win with violence. We don't win. They have more weapons, they have the weapons, they have the laws, they have the jails, and they want us to get violent. That's what they want. And that's why they plant these people within our movements to encourage people to bring fireworks or whatever, right? I mean, oh, yikes. Okay, well, that's worth keeping an eye on. And yeah, like you say, that's going to affect the peace activists, the environmentalists, everybody, right? So Okay, something to keep an eye on. So speaking of, let's get back to happier things now.
Yeah,
Other forms
sorry.
of, no, that's good. That's important stuff. But other forms of activism. So I was speaking yesterday or the other day with a friend of mine who is autistic, and he saved up some money and went to the UK in, was it 2019, when there was the massive animal rights marches and the big camp out? And
Yeah, the vegan camp out.
did you go to that?
I was at that vegan camp out. I was at the Animal Rights March in London, and then we had the one in Bristol in 2019. And I went to the vegan camp out, and it was incredible. My first time at camp out, and it was amazing.
Yeah, he went. I remember when he came back and he was just raving about it for ages. And he said now this year they're trying to organize for this year, and they've got Russell Brand
Yeah, I've got
lined up.
Russell Brand, so which I probably won't be going to see Russell Brand. I find him a bit apologetic, and I don't have much time for apologetic vegans. But yeah, it's going to be good. I mean, I've had my tickets for this year's since 2019. I bought them for Christmas because I was expecting to go last year, so those tickets are still safe for this year. So that I can't wait. I hope, fingers crossed, everything goes okay with COVID and lockdown. We come out of lockdown and we can have vegan camp out, because it's such an amazing place to be, and be in a field surrounded by 7,000 other vegans. And it's just an incredible experience. I mean, not all of them are vegan. In fact, my vegan camp out, I went with a friend of mine and her husband tagged along. He's not vegan. But by the end of the weekend, he was vegan. So
Right. That is
it's good.
amazing. That's so
Yeah.
cool. That sounds wonderful. Okay, and so you, in your presentation at the Animal Justice Academy, which was this lovely 6-week free online course that is still available for a year, there's all kinds of modules that people, I guess they contacted you ahead of time to send in a video for it.
It was kind of late notice, actually, and I was really shocked because my YouTube channel is so tiny. Like, I'm like a little tiny speck when it comes to YouTube. And I got an email, or I think actually I got a message on Facebook saying, "I've seen your YouTube channel. I know this is short notice, but we had someone plan to do a talk about everyday activism, and they can't do it because they're ill. Could you do it?" And this was on the Wednesday, and they needed it filmed and edited by the Saturday and sent over on the Saturday, because it was going off on the Monday. It was going to go out on the Monday or Tuesday, I think, on week 2. And yeah, I was flabbergasted and humbled, and just I couldn't believe it. I said to my husband, I was like, I can't believe this has just happened. Like, I've been asked to be part of this massive thing that it's got Melanie Joy on it, and just all these amazing, beautiful activists that are really well known, and there's little tiny old me. But I really enjoyed it, and it was what I was passionate about, and trying to inspire other people. I've had some really positive feedback from everyone, and I tried to reply to everyone's comment on the video. And yeah, I'm just sorry, I can't get the words out because I don't know how I feel about it. I'm overwhelmed by it. I
Wow.
really
Well,
am.
that's well, you did an incredible job. I was really inspired by your presentation, because it's true, it takes a lot of courage to get out and do the talking to strangers piece. But there are so many things. Could you give us samples of 2 or 3 other things that you like to do?
Yes. So I think one of the things I suggested was wearing a vegan t-shirt. So, I've got my favorite t-shirt says "Eat beans, not beings," and I love that one because it's quite gentle. Stickering, and if you're not happy to sticker in the supermarkets because you're worried about getting caught, then just leave them in with the products. So that's a good one. Um, Flyering, so leafleting, putting leaflets through people's doors, dropping leaflets in magazines. So when you're in the doctor's surgery, open up the magazine, put a vegan leaflet in there, put it back on the table. Um, Even leaving magazines in supermarkets. That's my favorite one, is going to the supermarket and putting the leaflet in there. The other thing I like doing with the magazines in the supermarket is getting the vegan ones and putting them in front of all the other magazines, so they're spread out. So you have like a whole row of just vegan. It'll be the same magazine, but it's a whole row covering all the fishing ones and whatever. So there's so many little things you can do. So many. Making a video was my latest idea that well, actually, it comes from Animal Justice Academy was to make a video about why you're vegan and to share that on your Facebook page or your Instagram or start up a YouTube channel. Because even if 10 people see it, that's 10 more people that have seen the reason of why you're vegan, and you might affect one of those 10 people that's seen it, and then they'll go on to affect others. So it's like a ripple effect.
Right on. Yeah, well, I would recommend people go check out your channel, the Vegan Pixie Warrior, right?
Vegan Pixie Warrior, yeah. My nickname's Pixie, and I feel like I'm a warrior for the animals. So.
And how did the YouTube channel start? What inspired you to start that?
Funny enough, it was the Liberation Pledge that did it. So I've been active for a while, and a few people have come up to me that in the city in Bristol and said, "Oh, Rebecca, you're the reason I've got active, and because of your posts on the local vegan pages on Facebook, I've gone out and done this and done that, and you've inspired." And when I took the Liberation Pledge, part of the pledge is to talk about the pledge and tell other people, get other people to take the Liberation Pledge. And also part of the Liberation Pledge is to go vegan. That's like the first part, to go vegan. So it's getting people to go vegan. So I kind of wanted to twist that a little bit and talk about the pledge, but also try and encourage others, vegans, to become active. Because I think that's the major problem we have at the moment. A friend of mine, a friend of mine called Mippy Valentine, she said that if we had 50% of vegans were active, we would have had a vegan world last week. But at the moment, it's such a tiny percentage of us that are out there doing something. And it doesn't have to be direct action. It doesn't have to be going into farms and taking animals. It doesn't have to be talking on the streets. It can be any of those little things that I mentioned a moment ago. But we need just more of us. So that's what it was that inspired me. But I thought no one wants to listen to a 44-year-old woman talking about activism. But my friend is a coach, and I took a coaching program with him to build up my self-esteem and improve my self-image of how I feel about myself and how I feel about how I look, and build up my confidence. And I just did it. And what I've loved as well is like the growth. Like my first video, I'm just sat here in this chair, all like stiff and nervous, and then up to the animal justice one, I'm just bang in confident and talking to my friends. And that's what I think I'm doing when I'm talking to the camera. I'm just talking to my mates. That's all I'm doing. But yeah, I just want a vegan world, and I just want to help people get active. And so I did some research before I started the channel, and the reasons people don't get active is they don't know how to get involved. They've got kids and family and they don't have time. They have a disability, so they can't get out on the streets or take part in a badger baiting, destroying badger baits, or fox huntings or something like that. Mm-hmm. So there's other things that you can do in the background. You can help with the paperwork. You can help with their websites, their Instagram pages. You don't have to be out there doing something. There's always something you can contribute to. Right. And use your strengths. Like I've interviewed a few people that are great with music and singing. I can't sing, I can't play any instruments, but I think it's that song might reach out to somebody and might make them think and go vegan.
Yeah, it's about planting those seeds, right? And each of us can play a part in that. And I think us older ladies, I'm older than you are, and it's a compulsion. I feel like you got to do something, right? And that's why I started my channel too, and which is smaller than yours, as a matter of fact, in terms of viewers. But when I check the demographics, I don't care. I mean, as long as even if one person is watching, that's great. And I find it interesting. I'm diverting in my head here, but I find it interesting that my non-vegan friends, who now sadly are former friends, I don't think they ever watched a single video that I did. It's really kind of sad. And then now I have this, since sort of taking this bigger liberation pledge of, if we're going to be friends, I need you to watch Earthlings. And they've chosen that our friendship isn't that important, apparently. So since doing that, I've hit the dystopia wall pretty hard, and but found this other wonderful community. I feel like I've lost some friends and it's really sad, but I found a community and that's a really wonderful thing. And so when I check the demographics anyways on my podcast and this page, it's older ladies who are really the people who are interested. And so power to us. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, definitely. Like your age and your sex shouldn't stand in your way of doing anything at all. I've got a friend he's 83 and he's a vegan activist and he's out on the streets and he's running and doing exercise and he's an inspiration to all of us. He's the youngest 83-year-old that I've ever met in my life and he's amazing. But even if you're speaking to like one or two people, if 40 people watch your video or listen to your podcast, that's 40 people out there that would never have heard that or never got that inspiration that they need. So never ever give up. Like just keep going. And if my channel gets big, then great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. The fact of the matter is that I've only been doing it since June of last year, and I've got a lot of videos out there now because I did a Christmas advent calendar thing every day for 24 days.
Cool.
Um, but I've got people that have come to me and said they've got active because of watching that video. I was on someone's stream the other night and someone watching said, Vegan Pixie Warrior, your Liberation Pledge videos have really helped me in my journey on taking the Liberation Pledge. Brilliant. If I just help one person, that would be great. And I've helped a handful and that's fantastic. And it's not just me, it's the people I'm talking to. So I'm trying to stay away from interviewing big activists like Joey Carbstrong and Earth Lynette. I'm trying to interview activists that are there just in that community, the ones that we don't talk about, the unsung heroes that are there on the front line and doing that job, so that people can reach out to them and they might say, well, they're in my area. I had one girl reach out and she's in Northern Ireland and she thought she was too young to go to a vigil, or she didn't know how to get involved in other forms of activism. I happened to know an activist in Belfast, so I asked him if I could interview him, and now she's reached out to him and she's getting active.
Right.
So I'm just happy that that's happened, and that's what I wanted. Every time I get a message, it's probably like maybe 2 or 3 times a month I get a message from somebody, but that's great. That's the whole reason I did it, was you're out there and you're helping the animals, and that's what I want. So.
Right. Okay. Well, and just one last thing then before we go, Rebecca, is in terms of self-care, we care about the animal so much sometimes that we get a little burned out because we're so focused on that. But I think that's an important part of what you're advocating too, is that we've got to take time for ourselves, right?
100%. Yeah. I exercise morning. I know I don't look like it, but I do circuits every morning. I meditate at night before I go to bed. I'm lucky enough that I've got outside space, so I'm into gardening as well. And something that I'm going to start after lockdown is some more work in the community. So whether that's litter picking or a beach clean or feeding the homeless. So you're away then from the animals and you're also building that community and being with other people. But that's my way of self-care, is meditation and exercise. Exercise is so good for the mind. It really helps mental health.
Right on. Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and for everything that you're doing for the animals and the human animals too.
Thank you so much for inviting me on, and thank you for everything you're doing for the animals, because every one of us are important. Every one of us.
Right on.